Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Washing Dishes, where today I am correcting an oversight because I realized I haven't taught y'all how to cook pork chops yet. My bad. So the only thing that goes better with pork chops than pork chops is, well, bacon. So I'm just dicing up some bacon into about half-inch cubes. They'll cook down a fair bit, and we're going to use those to accompany some Brussels sprouts, and we're going to use the fat that we get from rendering this to cook both our pork chops and our Brussels sprouts and some other veggies. So hang out, stick around, check it out, and we'll make a delicious dinner right about now. The first step, of course, is going to be rendering out the bacon fat, and we're going to be using a cast iron pan for pretty much all of this. And for that, we're going to go ahead and toss the bacon in on low to medium heat, add a little bit of water just to kind of help get things heating up, and then we're going to let that render out until it's nice and crispy, and we've got a really beautiful bunch of crispy bacon. This is, of course, more bacon than you're going to need for even the two portions that we're going to make today. I'm using some of it for another project, but also, extra bacon fat is never a bad thing. So while that sizzles away, we're going to go ahead and get started on some of our other components. With the bacon resting, it's time to deal with some veg prep. I've got some Brussels sprouts. We're gonna trim them up. We're gonna trim up some fennel, and then we'll get on to the pork chop and the beurre blanc sauce. This is gonna be a really wonderful dinner. I'm really excited to have it. Let's get to, the chopping part. And for the Brussels sprouts, I'm just going to trim off the ends, pull away the loose leaves, and leave them whole. I intentionally got smaller Brussels sprouts for this meal. If you have larger Brussels sprouts, just cut them into halves or quarters. You want them to be small enough that they'll cook fairly quickly, because we are cooking them last, and we want them to cook quickly enough that the other parts of the dish don't cool off before we're ready to serve. So we're going to chop those, and then we're going to take some fennel fronds, chop those up. We're going to chop some fennel into, just kind of thin shaved fennel bits, kind of like we do with onion. And then we'll go ahead and continue on with our bacon. Whoops. And the bacon, we're just going to drain the fat off through a strainer, save the fat, save the bacon. I'm going to get the bacon out onto some paper towels. And then we will start with one of my favorite parts of this meal, the beurre blanc sauce. Check it out.
We'll just let those drain off.
So beurre blanc is a classical French butter sauce. We're going to do a lemon and fennel version of it. So instead of using the traditional white wine, shallots, and peppercorns, we're going to be using lemon peel, shallots, fennel, and lemon juice, and still some pepper, and then a whole bunch of butter. But first, we're going to reduce all of this lemon juice down with our aromatics until it's almost completely reduced. In French, you would call that au sec, or almost dry. And that's going to take a few minutes. We'll strain it out. And then the cool thing is that concentrate can be held at basically room temperature until you're ready to plate. And this is a sauce that can pretty much only be made at the moment that you're going to serve it. Again, in French, à la minute. Basically, what it means is if you order something in a restaurant with a beurre blanc sauce, they're not going to make that sauce until you order it. Usually. But yeah, so we're going to just let this reduce for a little while, and then we'll, finish it up when it's ready to go. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be cooking our pork chop in some bacon fat that we rendered earlier. And God, that pork chop looks beautiful. Again, shout out to my local butcher shop, Wyzox. Great folks, great food. If you're in San Diego, check them out. Not sponsored at all. In fact, they don't even know I do this. But yeah, so we're just going to let this go until it starts to crust on the first side. You can see that I'm stirring my reduction for the beurre blanc off to the right there. We're going to let this go till it starts to crust. Then we're going to turn it until that side starts to crust. And we're going to go back and forth, turning it every 2 to 4 minutes. And this being a thick bone-in chop and turning it regularly will make sure that we don't end up with curled edges that result in very uneven cooking and browning. And now you can see, while our pork chop's going, that the reduction has reduced. You can see it's leaving a trail in the pan that's like leaving the bare part of the pan. So that means it's almost there. So we're back to the pork, keeping it moving. It's got a really beautiful crust, and we're going to give it another flip. We're going to check the temperature and find out that it needs another probably 5 to 10 minutes. Was my guess. I temped it later, and it came up a little further than I expected it to be. So I gave it 10, and it probably only needed about 7 or 8. But yeah, we're going for an internal temp of 150 to 155. If you hit 155, that's kind of the highest you ever want to cook it in the pan, because we're going to get some carryover. I lucked out, and this was still really juicy and delicious, but you want to be careful not to overcook pork chops. Well, our reduction has reduced, so we're going to strain it out, clean up the pan, and then we're going to use this same pan to do the emulsification in. But we're going to get this out because we don't want any chunky bits in our nice, creamy, silky, beautiful butter sauce, which we're going to make in just a sec. We're going to get our Brussels sprouts going in the hot pan with the residual fat that's left in there. We're just going to kind of toss them around, let them get a good sear on all the sides, just to try to develop some flavor with some salt and pepper. And then we're going to go ahead and add some of our shaved fennel to kind of deglaze, quote-unquote deglaze the pan with a little bit of water. It's mostly just to kind of get the stuck bits up from the bottom, because there's flavor there, and the fennel will pick up that flavor, and it'll be really delicious. You could totally use like some white wine or chicken vegetable stock, chicken stock, pork stock, whatever. I used water because that was what I had at hand. But yeah, we're just going to let this go until the Brussels are a little roasty and start to soften. The fennel is going to get brown and delicious, and then we're going to go ahead and add our bacon back in and toss it around, get everything warmed up, and, get those flavors to kind of say hi to each other. And then it's going to be time for our sauce. I know, I've been stalling on the sauce. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Okay, the quality to difficulty ratio on this butter sauce is insanely on the quality side, because this sauce is not that difficult. I'm just adding the reduction back into the pan, adding a little pat of cold butter. It was in the fridge a few minutes ago. I cut it up, and now it's in a little dish on my table. And then you can use a spatula or a whisk, or you can do what I'm doing and just kind of shake it around in the pan. And you want this over super low heat, and you're going to need to adjust your heat, either turning the heat up and down or moving the pan up and down to slowly melt the butter as it emulsifies in. And as each pat of butter is down to the last 5 to 10% of the butter, you want to add the next one in, and you're just going to keep doing that little by little until you have a rich, creamy sauce in the pan and no more butter. I used about 4 tablespoons of butter to do this. It takes a little while, but it's so worth it.
It's very hot in here because I have the fan off for the audio, and I've been cooking. So let's plate and taste, and then I get to have dinner. Yes! All right, let's move the plate out of the way. Ooh, that's still a little warm, which is good. So we've got our beautiful bone-in pork chop. which I'm going to slice. I'm going to move this plate. So I'm going to slice the bone off. And then just do some nice angled slices. This looks exceptionally good. So excited to have this for dinner. This is definitely enough for two. I'm just going to have leftovers. My coworkers can be grumpy when I bring it into work. All right, so we'll move these back onto our sizzle platter for a moment. Clean up our board. It's important to clean as you go. Okie dokie. So I'm going to start with a bed of our veggies. Just going to kind of let those pile up in the middle. Don't worry, we'll get the rest of those Brussels in a minute. All right, and then we're going to do, I'm going to plate the entire chop. And I'm going to eat half of it. We'll lay that down and put the bone next to it with the veggies kind of peeking out right here. And then we'll collect the rest of our Brussels. Kind of pile them up. Come back. There we go. I'm going to garnish with a little bit of the fresh shaved fennel. And then this is our fennel and lemon beurre blanc, which I'm just going to kind of drizzle over everything. And then I'm going to pour a fair amount of it down here next to the bone so that we'll have a little puddle of it that we can dip the pork into as we go. And then as the final garnish, I'm just going to sprinkle a little fresh fennel over the top. And then I'll bring you all in for a closer look before I dig in. One sec. All right, this looks absolutely spectacular. Let's go back to the wide shot so I can taste it. Okie dokie. I need a fork. One sec. I have a fork. Let's try this. I don't know what it is. I always go for the veggies first. Sauce is super good on it. The Brussels, one sec. The Brussels are a little bit bitter, vegetal. Adding the fennel and lemony is just brightens it up. It's so good. And then let's dive into this pork. Get a little extra sauce on it. The pork is cooked perfectly. If I don't hurt myself patting myself on the back too hard. Sauce is absolutely delicious with it. The little bit of the fresh fennel with it adds kind of just a nice, kind of anisey brightness. This is excellent. It's so balanced and this is great for summer. It would be great any time of the year. Brussels are pretty easy to find, so is fennel, especially if you live somewhere that you get pretty good produce variety year-round. It's a little rich for the temperature it is right now. I think it's 90 in my kitchen or something, but this is absolutely delicious. So thank you all for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, night, morning, whatever. And if you like what you've seen, go ahead and follow me on social media. I'm at Wash in the Wind most places, except for Instagram and Threads, where there's just no E. And I stream on Twitch, I'm on Twitter, I've got a Patreon. I've been doing this for a while, so if you want to check out some more videos, they should be floating around in this neighborhood, I assume, if I did my job during editing. Anyway, thank you all for watching. See you next time on Washing Dishes.